Today we are looking at NOOD, and yes, I am aware that's not how you say it, but YouTube can be a little bit iffy whenever it comes to things to say on the platform, and you would say it a bit differently, I know, so I'm going to call it NOOD. Now, in this video, I am going to be reviewing the dry dog food, and there are two varieties that I want you to pay attention to. Now, it used to be the case that supermarkets used to just sell one bag of food and it would be really poor quality. It would just be whatever they wanted to sell and the quality was pretty rubbish. However, in the last 10 years or so, a lot of supermarkets, for that matter, have started doing their own in-house brands and trying to entice customers like yourself to buy everything within the supermarket, and they try to keep the prices down and affordable as much as possible anyway. So in this video we are going to be reviewing it, and let me just tell you something, this video is not sponsored. I am not affiliated with Tesco in any way, shape or form, so what I say here are my own opinions, and I think it is very important that you get unbiased advice from people who are unbiased and who actually know a lot about dog and cat nutrition. So the first recipe we are going to take a look at is the premium cage-free chicken, and it's chicken. So on the front we see chicken, we see probiotics, we see 100% traceable ingredients, and in order for us to assess whether a food is good or bad, we are always going to ignore whatever they tell us on the front of the packet, because they could be saying whatever they want to say. They want to say hypoallergenic, they'll say hypoallergenic. If they want to say natural, they'll say natural, and then they will put whatever they want on the back of the packet. So yes, it's just a bit of marketing. Always turn the bag of food and all the treats and read the very ingredients or for everything you give your dog, and that will ensure that your dog does not get any allergies or anything you don't want them to have. So the first ingredient is fresh chicken, and that's 14%, and that's always really interesting and very good. So whenever we see the first ingredient being fresh, a fresh ingredient coming from an animal, in this case chicken, then that is a very good start. So 14% of what it goes into the recipe is fresh chicken. That's absolutely wonderful. The second ingredient is dehydrated pork protein. I am not a fan of that. Why? Because we want the actual pork. We don't want the protein. We don't want the dehydration process whenever it comes to our ingredients, because that just gives the manufacturer the allowance for them to cut corners and to put pork. So on the front you have chicken, now they add pork. So if you thought you were only giving your dog chicken, well, you aren't. You are also giving them pork. We then have maize and then barley. So maize and barley are filler ingredients, and they are very detrimental to your dog. They are inflammatory, they cause inflammation. If you think about it, things with barley, things with maize, things with corn, things with rice, those tend to be on the inflammatory side. So we don't want anything in our dog's food to be inflammatory, to be hard for dogs to digest. If you eat fast food, for example, they have maize and barley, and they are wonderful foods. However, they can be hard to digest. So I don't like seeing those ingredients in pet food. The next ingredient is whole peas, and that's 10%. So peas is okay, it's a legume. It can be hard to digest. It can get dogs a bit of flatulence when it comes to their diet, and it can be sometimes hard for some dogs to digest. Other dogs might be okay, but sometimes some dogs don't do very well on peas. We then get split peas, hydrolyzed poultry protein. So the process of hydrolyzation is whenever you break down molecules with water so that they get absorbed by the body a lot easier. The thing I don't like about this is the poultry protein. They don't put their thumb on the ingredient. We don't precisely know what we are giving our dog. It's poultry protein, whatever poultry is available. They don't want to say chicken or quail or whatever is poultry, whatever a specific bird they are putting into the recipe. They could be whatever, and I don't like that. We then have pork fat, and then all the stuff like dehydrated chicken protein, salmon oil, oats, dried beet pulp, etc, etc. So far in the chicken recipe, we see that this isn't exclusively a chicken recipe. It contains pork, it contains poultry protein, and it contains pork fat. The thing I don't like about pet food sometimes is the prevalence of a lot of filler, a lot of cheap ingredients. Whenever you go into pet food, into dog food, you want to be paying for meat. If you pay 15-20 pounds per bag of food or 50 pounds per bag of food, you want those pounds to be allocated to as much meat as possible, because that's what costs money. If you go to a restaurant and you order meat, that's what costs money. The vegetables don't really cost all that much. So the same applies to dog food. So I don't like the pork protein, I don't like maize, I don't like barley, I don't like peas because we already have maize and barley, and then I don't like the oats and the rest of vague ingredients such as poultry protein. So this would be a very, on a scale of 1 to 10, probably like a 3 in terms of quality. This is not very good. It's not very good at all, in my opinion. The second recipe here is the grass-fed beef, and again it says all the right things. Premium complete nutrition, grass-fed beef recipe, and those are just marketing things. We are always going to turn the bag of food over and see what's what. And here we have fresh beef, and that's 14%. I love the fact that you see fresh and an animal ingredient as a first ingredient. That is absolutely wonderful. The second ingredient is dehydrated pork protein, just as the previous recipe. We then have maize and barley, and then whole peas, split peas, hydrolyzed poultry protein, pork fat, dried beef pulp, dehydrated chicken protein, etc, etc. So again, what do I not like about this recipe? Well, we are talking about maize and barley, inflammatory, hard for dogs to digest. Dogs cannot digest carbohydrates as efficiently as you or me. If you look at their teeth cannot chew anything. So for them to eat anything that is not biologically appropriate, as it were, anything biologically that they were designed to eat, then that isn't really appropriate for our dogs to eat. They would never attack a field of barley or wheat or whatever. So those ingredients cannot be the pillars of their diet. That just screams allergies, it screams sensitivities, it screams gastrointestinal issues, and in the long term, if your dog is on something like this, which is very carb heavy, pretty full of inflammatory ingredients such as maize or barley, your dog is not going to have the best health. Now, all in all, we are talking about a food that is about 60 to 70% carbohydrates, filler. And let me tell you something about dogs and carbohydrates. Dogs do not need carbohydrates for energy. They need more meat and fat than anything else. They can actually make their own sugar, their own energy from protein and fat. It's a process called gluconeogenesis. So any carbohydrates you provide your dog with need to be the very best carbohydrates. You cannot be putting cereals, wheat, barley, corn, soy, things like that into your dog because they are not very well equipped to digesting them, to eating them, and they do not retain a lot of the nutrients. So things like runny stools is a very clear indication of undigested food and that your dog is really struggling with their food. And so things like these, on a scale of maybe 1 to 10, this food would be a 3. Yes, they do want to make the food affordable, but it isn't very good, and it isn't very good because of the ingredients. They can say whatever they want on the front, but the ingredients aren't very good at all. Now, we specialize on nutrition on this channel, and we have made a video that's really popular and that has garnered a lot of attention, and we have explained what the best dog foods are on the market and what to specifically look out for whenever it comes to your dog's food for optimum health. I want you to watch this video next.